Welcome into the PFF podcast. Steve Palazzolo back here with Sam Monson doing our regular Week 7 NFL review. Sam, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing good. How are you? I'm hearing my voice a lot today, though. It's bumming me out.
We heard your voice. You said this would be bad radio because it's an inside joke, but you're doing a little player grades video, right?
A little video for our player grades package.
Just kind of like showing everybody what they're about. And how is it coming out so far?
I can't tell, right? I did a voiceover for this video, and Taylor is editing it at the moment, so I'm hearing my voice constantly on a loop in the background playing back to me, and it kind of sounds a lot at the moment like the introduction to some kind of museum showpiece. You know, you walk in under an arch, you see some fantastic display, and some freaky voice comes over the system welcoming you to the exhibit, sounding a lot like that. Or the guy from Futurama. Welcome to the world of tomorrow. That's what it's sounding like.
And you're saying welcome to player grade. I thought it was more like amusement park ride.
Well,
that was what you started with, right?
Yeah, it's somewhere in that ballpark. Either way, it doesn't seem like a winner.
Keep your extremities in the cart, and it's going to be.
It feels like a re-record is in my future.
It's going to be a crazy ride through PFF player grade. So keep an eye out for that video coming up soon. All right, let's dive into the Week 7 action. Can we kick off the episode with just a quick moment of silence for Joe Thomas?
Yeah, you're going to pour one out for Joe? Have you got?
I'm going to pour out a little coffee.
Okay.
Taylor, if I actually pour out some coffee, will you clean it up?
Mop it up.
Okay, that's not part of your job description. I will, what is it, hypothetically or
metaphorically?
Metaphorically pour it out. We're pouring out a little bit for Joe. Everybody pour out a little for Joe Thomas, the best left tackle in the league, 10 years running, finally misses a snap. Torn triceps?
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Officially torn triceps, which, to be honest, didn't need a huge amount of official making, given that he went down like someone had shot him in the triceps.
Right. We had an idea that something bad was going on. I have to say, Sam, as people who watch the trenches quite a bit, certainly more than your average fan and more than a lot of coaches.
I thought you were going with people, with the triceps thing. People have been working on the triceps. People with some impressive triceps.
I have weak triceps.
Triceps.
Neil Hornsby, I mean, if he had been training with Neil, perhaps.
Maybe it wouldn't have happened.
Perhaps we could have everybody's been hurt that's trained with Neil.
It's usually the back, though. People don't tend to hurt their triceps training with Neil. It's usually a back problem.
We've all had back injuries training with Neil, so maybe that would not have helped much. My point is we've been watching the trenches. We watch the trenches more than most, and he's been a pleasure to watch. He's a great left tackle, rarely gives up pressure, always a solid run blocker. Probably the best pass-protecting tackle of our generation.
Definitely the best pass-protecting tackle of our generation. I think what was really interesting this year is last year he wasn't quite as good as he'd been in the previous seasons, and when you get to that age, you're kind of constantly looking for the first sign that a guy might be declining, as I know from past experience.
You're just waiting to call somebody in decline.
But I've become wary. So I saw Joe Thomas's initial decline last year. Wasn't as good as he'd been in the previous years. And you're thinking, well, he's reaching that age. Maybe we're starting to see the end of Joe Thomas. But we don't know. Let's see what happens this year. Joe Thomas comes back this year, looks as good as he's ever been. So it didn't look like, it looks like last year was just a blip. It wasn't a sign of a decline. Joe Thomas this year has again been the standard of left tackle pass blocking play. And what makes that amazing is that Thomas consistently has a bunch of quarterbacks he's protecting for who make his job harder. Like, it's not like they just, he doesn't have an Andy Dalton kind of Bengals quick passing system that Andrew Whitworth had for years that actively makes him look better. I mean, he doesn't just not have that. He has guys that are actively making it harder by holding onto the ball and dropping to the wrong place and really stressing out his leverage and all that kind of stuff.
And if they hold it too long or really stress out his leverage, we'll account for that.
Yeah.
But it still puts a little, the longer you hold the ball, it still puts a little bit more pressure on the tackle.
So he's at the other end of the scale in terms of having one of the hardest pass blocking jobs out there to do, and yet he still looks like the best left tackle out there.
Came into the league in 2007, kicked it off with an 87.8 PFF grade. He has never had a grade lower than 86, and 4 years up over that very elusive 90 mark in the blue in your PFF grades. That is the elite of PFF. That's all a part of PFF Edge, not to confuse you, the elite player, but it's all a part of PFF Edge in player grades. You guys can check out his career numbers if you guys are subscribers. So we'll have a quick moment of silence for Joe Thomas. So far, a great career. I'm not saying the career's over, but he missed his first snap of his entire career yesterday, and it's been a pleasure to watch.
There we go.
Okay.
And we also lost Malik Hooker, who tore 2 knee ligaments.
And I love Malik, and it's a sad injury. You have to earn the moment of silence, though.
No, I'm sure. I wasn't suggesting a moment of silence for Malik, more just acknowledging that it happened.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That was sad because, look, he's on his way to becoming one of the best young safeties in the league. Still might have some tackling issues, but, man, when you talk about a guy that can create turnovers on the back end of a defense, he's already shown that ability early in his rookie season. And it was friendly fire that got him.
Yeah, freak kind of knee collision that just made his knee buckle and things inside it snap. Never a good thing. Who else did we lose yesterday? Carson Palmer broke his arm, isn't that right?
Yes. Carson Palmer broken arm means the Drew Stanton, not the Drew Stanton era, but Drew Stanton steps in.
Oh, that's not a good era.
As a backup. Blaine Gabbert get a shot?
Could be.
Maybe get Blaine Gabbert in there. You know what Drew Stanton is. Not that you don't know what Gabbert is.
You kind of know what Gabbert is, too. Either way, they're screwed.
It's not a good.
What you're getting to.
It's not a good situation for the Cardinals.
No.
And if on the preview pod, we summed it up. We previewed Jacksonville and said, hey, Calais Campbell, signing of the offseason. And we said, hey, Calais Campbell, biggest miss, the biggest difference on that Arizona defense. Calais Campbell's emergence for Jacksonville and the loss for Arizona has just been immense.
Well, we also kind of called this Adrian Peterson thing running off the rails pretty quickly.
Right.
We said the week before he was fantastic, but he also had the best blocking performance of Jermaine Gresham's life, which was never going to happen twice. And that offensive line has been consistently bad. Again, probably not going to be as good as it was that first week. So it's going to be interesting to see what Adrian Peterson can do when all that goes away and you get the Cardinals' offensive line that we've seen for the rest of this year. That's exactly what happened this week against the Rams. And the answer is Adrian Peterson get absolutely nothing done when that happens because Gresham wasn't good, the offensive line was terrible, and Peterson looked bad again. He looked like the guy that was running into brick walls of the Vikings when their line fell to pieces. And interestingly, the Cardinals don't appear to have learned yet that Adrian Peterson can't be on the field in passing situations.
Right.
So he played 14 passing snaps, which is actually more than the running snaps he played, just 12 of those. 8 where he was out in a pass pattern, and 6 when he was kept into pass block. Of those 6 pass blocking snaps, he gave up a hit in a hurry. So that's not good. And obviously the receiving part as well, Adrian Peterson was thrown at 4 times, dropped 2 of them, caught just 1 pass for 12 yards. So Peterson simply cannot be on the field in passing downs. The Vikings learned that years ago.
There's 10 years of tape on this.
Yes. The Cardinals, if they haven't learned it now, should probably.
He has not had an above-average receiving grade since his rookie season. And other than small sample sizes, has not had an above-average pass-blocking grade since 2009, and that's the only one of his career. So we've got 1 positive receiving, 1 positive pass-blocking grade in his entire career.
You have to look at what the Vikings were doing and say that they probably knew what the deal was. When you have a guy that was as good as Adrian Peterson was at his peak, and they were taking him off the field on passing situations and in some of their most game-critical spots, like 2-minute drives at the end of the half, 2-minute drives at the end of the game, and Peterson was sitting on the sideline despite the fact that he was clearly their most dynamic playmaker. There's a reason for that, and it's because he is a liability in both those situations.
You would think it wouldn't be that difficult. Now, catching a screen, you can catch a screen, right? You'll drop a couple. But you would think, like, catching a screen, he'd be able to do that every now and again. But they didn't even trust him that. But they always had Chester Taylor or somebody doing the screen work. It's a little different, like running routes and getting open and stuff like that. If you're not good at it, you're not good at it.
But the big thing is the pass protection, which for a guy of his dimensions and physical ability, his pass blocking performance over his career has always been, I don't know what the right word for this is. It's disappointing, but it's something more than that as well. Because a lot of running back blitz pickup is about how much you want to do it. I can't remember who it was on the broadcast or even what broadcast I was looking at yesterday. It may have been Tony Romo, who was talking about a lot of these rookies when it comes to pass protection are a little bit hesitant, tentative when it comes to contact. They're not, they don't kind of anticipate the level of violence that's required to pick up these blitzes. Because linebackers,
you have a fast linebacker with a head of steam coming at you.
A guy who is built heavier than you are, who's got a run coming and is barreling his way through you because, he's not going to try and go around you. He's going right through you into the quarterback.
That was Christian McCaffrey yesterday.
Yeah.
3 snaps in pass protection, got destroyed for a hit, walked right through Cam Newton. Another one gave up a hurry, wasn't as bad, and another one he makes a pretty nice little cut block.
And when you see great running backs doing it, guys like Clinton Portis back in the day and Maurice Jones-Drew, you see the violence with which they pick these blitzes up. They're not just getting in the way of blitzers; they are hitting these guys and trying to win at contact. And Adrian Peterson, with his physical gifts, should have been fantastic at that, but never did. Never wanted to do it. Never really had that desire to go and throw himself at these guys, and has consistently allowed a huge amount of pressure, which is dangerous for a quarterback because those guys get hurt at the end of that.
It's my throw my baseball analogy in there that you won't get. It reminds me of a great hitter.
Baseball. I just dislike it.
Well, you should like it. It's like a great hitter who's just not a good fielder. And just getting better as a fielder just takes a lot of time and a lot of work and creep back toward average, like we talk about offensive line play. If only Adrian Peterson could have done that. I don't know if any other big games stood out. I want to talk more big picture, though, before we maybe touch on some other games. Early in the year, we talked a lot about, hey, defenses seem to be better this year. Why is that? Is it the offensive lines? Our defense is just getting better. I think we're at the point of the season where my quick theory on it, we're just seeing a bunch of mediocre quarterback play, and a lot of that is certainly dependent on, the defenses being better, but it's a lot of mediocre quarterback play and improved defenses. I think that's why we're seeing so many ugly games. I don't hate that, by the way. I don't mind seeing some pretty good defense, but right now, using PFF grades, all a part of PFF Edge, Andy Dalton, we have quarterbacks from numbers 12 through 27, all sitting in the 70s. And actually, the bigger question I'm bringing up here is about the parity in the NFL, where everybody seems to have 3 or 4 losses right now. I think this is the reason for parity, right? There's no elite quarterback play. It's like there's Tom Brady, and then Drew Brees is playing well, and Alex Smith and Russell Wilson. A few guys are playing well at the top. Everybody else is playing middle of the pack, middle of the road. And there are some pretty good defenses now kind of offsetting things.
So there's definitely, if you look at the games, we had, 3 shutouts yesterday. The Falcons scored at the end of that disastrous fog game on Monday night to get off the schneid in that game. The Panthers scored 3 points. The Giants scored 7. The Browns scored 9. The 49ers scored 10. That was a late one as well. So 3 shutouts and a bunch more single-digit or almost single-digit scores.
I mean, the Bears scored 17, but 2 of them were defense.
Yes. So essentially that was a 3-3 game where the defense added on another 14 to make it look better.
And the Titans won with 12 points in overtime.
So there are a lot of these games where the offenses don't look like they can get anything done. But if you look at how many of them are directly tied to just horrendous offensive line play, it's a lot. I mean, we were talking when we first came in this morning. The guy I always bring up with this is Bryant McKinnie, the left tackle for the Vikings during the 2000s. He was a good left tackle, and he was actually better in pass protection than he was as a run blocker, which is kind of weird for a guy that was like a man mountain.
Yeah, he's supposed to get that mauling label, right?
Yeah, but he was kind of nimble on his feet, so was actually a better pass blocker most of the time. But Bryant McKinnie just could not block Dwight Freeney, ever. Going back to college, that was the big game that he struggled in there. Couldn't do it any time they ran into each other in the NFL. But because he was such a good pass-blocking left tackle generally, the Vikings had no backup plan they had no scenario gamed out where Bryant McKinnie was suddenly a catastrophic problem on this offensive line. It just didn't exist. So when you ran into games and Dwight Freeney was going up against him and he started to completely destroy the guy, the Vikings offense was just done for that day. They could not function because
Freeney will do that to you.
Exactly. And that's what happens when you run up against a Hall of Fame pass-rushing edge defender like Dwight Freeney. But what we're seeing now is that there are so many offensive tackles or even offensive linemen that are at that level of play, that kind of catastrophic game where you are breaking the offense on your own. So the Panthers scored 3 points, and Matt Khalil got absolutely destroyed at left tackle. Gave up a sack, 2 hits, 3 hurries, had one of Matt Khalil's bad days, which are pretty ugly. The Cardinals, we just talked about, their offensive line was a train wreck. Alex Boone at left guard was the biggest problem there, but none of them graded particularly well. 2 sacks, a hit, 3 hurries for Boone at left guard, which is a lot. Typically guards give up less than tackles. Denver, we've talked about, Menelik Watson watch. Menelik Watson is no longer there. He's injured, but they had Alan Barber at right tackle, who gave up 3 sacks and 5 hurries, admittedly against a very good Chargers pass rush. Garrett Bowles, 2 sacks. There's so many. All these guys, you can almost trace every single game where the offense couldn't get any points to offensive linemen that are just catastrophically bad. And there are so many teams now where there's a starter in that lineup that is at that level. One of them, and that's big enough to be a problem. And then anytime a guy goes down, the guy coming off the bench is invariably a major problem, because offensive line play is so thin in today's NFL that anybody not starting is terrible.
So it's having weak points on the line and a lack of depth.
And injuries that are causing even more weak points on the line.
Just to add some perspective to this, our pass blocking efficiency metric, when we put it to all offensive lines, and it's essentially a pressure percentage metric, right? And skews a little bit heavier toward sacks given up. If you look at 2017, currently, there are 10 offensive lines above 80. Okay, and 80 is a pretty solid mark. So there's only 10 offensive lines above 80. I just clicked back to 2007 just for perspective, back to the golden age of football. Not really. There was 14 above 80, which isn't a mass. Oh, no, sorry, 17 above 80 back then. I think a bigger issue is the lowest team in 2007 in pass blocking efficiency was about a 75. Currently, there's 9 teams in the NFL right now that would have been last in the NFL in pass blocking efficiency in 2007, under 75. So if we're talking that bottom end offensive line play, we're talking about the Cincinnati Bengals, the Denver Broncos, Carolina Panthers, the Chargers, the Bears, the Lions, the Seahawks, the Cardinals, and the Texans all would rank last in just the simple number of how much pressure you're giving up on a per-play basis 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's a good number. I think that's indicative of the kind of problem I'm talking about. So I think there is some good defense being played, but I really think the root cause of all this is just a catastrophic decline in specific areas of the offensive line.
So I think that's a big part of it. I think the quarterback thing's a part of it. I also look at we've been scouting these NFL drafts the last couple of years, and the last 2 drafts have brought a lot of defensive talent into the league. This is what you call a little segue here, too.
Oh, yeah?
Because I want to get into Marshon Lattimore.
Ooh.
Speaking of guys that came into the league and are now elite talents. But this past draft, because that's all I do during draft season is focus on the draft, the thing I kept saying over and over again, this is the draft where you reshape your secondary. This is the draft where you can get some pass rushers. And I just think that the NFL has brought a ton of good young talent into the league on the defensive side of the ball. If you remember when we started this 3 years ago, we were saying the NFL hasn't had any good safeties come into the league from about 2011, 12, 13. There's Deron Harmon of the Patriots, who's basically like a glorified role player, free
safety. Like a nickel free safety.
Yeah, and he's a solid player. Nothing against Deron Harmon. He's pretty much, I got to go back and double check, but pretty much the only real safety that came into the league and has been a good player. There's a couple of guys from 2011 through 14, whatever it is. Now there's a bunch of good safeties in the league, and we're talking about a league that is so creative on offense now, and you need to match up with tight ends if you're a safety. You need to play zone. You need to be able to play the run. Safeties are more valuable than ever if they're good, and we finally get this influx of new safeties. I think the league is kind of trending toward defense a little bit too, because the talent is coming in. Maybe there's this mid-level quarterback issue, but I think that there's just more defensive talent coming in, and now you have a guy like Marshon Lattimore, and you wrote a fantastic article on the site this week, basically highlighted. We've been waiting to write this article, right, Sam? We've been waiting to highlight just how good Marshon Lattimore has been, Saints cornerback. So I'll let you break it down, and if you guys want to read further, ProFootballFocus.com has it all.
Yeah, well, he had another fantastic game this week against the Packers, granted aided by the fact that the Packers quarterback was Brett Hundley and not Aaron Rodgers. That's always going to help. But Marshon Lattimore had another great game and is now the best graded rookie cornerback in the league this year, is the best graded rookie cornerback through 7 weeks in PFF's history. So we've gone 2006 onwards. He is the best graded rookie cornerback through 7 weeks. You can even expand that one further, and he is the best graded rookie, period, through 7 weeks we have ever seen in the NFL. He currently has an overall PFF grade of, 94 point something, and that is the highest mark, 94.1. That's the highest mark of any rookie through the first 7 weeks of the NFL season since 2006, which is pretty staggering. What's interesting about him is that he has basically been playing right corner the entire time for the Saints. Lined up on his side, doesn't move, that's it. He covers whoever comes out there. This week against Green Bay was the first time that the Saints have moved their corners around, and he basically tracked Davante Adams in that game, allowed Davante Adams to get basically nothing. Davante Adams, I think, had 2 catches for like 8 yards or something, and they both came against safeties when he was working the middle of the field. Didn't get anything against Marshon Lattimore, who broke up 2 of the 3 passes that came his way. But if they're reaching the point now where they feel comfortable enough with those corners, with Lattimore and with Ken Crawley on the other side, to start moving them around, tracking receivers, we could see something really quite special out of Lattimore.
Seriously, now, and I always find it fascinating to see how cornerbacks are used to track. A lot of times it's like, well, we're going to use Richard Sherman to track Des Bryant and the big receiver. In New England, a lot of time, even when they had Darrelle Revis would grab the best route runner. Revis's heyday, it didn't matter. He was grabbing the best guy. It's Calvin Johnson. It's Steve Smith. They're 2 completely different receivers. Didn't matter.
Even the Jets used to do that to an extent. The Jets would have Revis on.
That's what I'm saying. Jets Revis would be the best player.
Sorry, I thought you said Patriots Revis.
Well, so I started with Patriots Revis would be a lot of best route runner. Like if you're playing the Colts, it's T.Y. Hilton. If you're playing the Broncos, it was Emmanuel Sanders, not Demaryius Thomas. But Revis in his heyday with the Jets, it's best receiver, regardless. Patrick Peterson, it's generally best receiver. Lattimore being with, is it little of both?
I think they did. I think when they were with the Jets and they had Cromartie and Revis, they would play styles and matchups a bit. They would give Cromartie the guy that was the biggest vertical threat, because
I don't know. 2009, the legendary 2009 Revis season, was Randy Moss a couple times. I think it was Calvin that year. Was it Calvin that year?
But they also had
it was Steve Smith that year.
They had years where Cromartie was on Moss and Revis took Welker.
Here's my point with Lattimore.
Quick threat.
Here's my point with Lattimore. I think he can cover any type of receiver.
Yeah,
because of his quicks, because of his size, because of his deep speed. One of the things that really stood out about him at Ohio State when scouting him was, like when you watch Revis play the deep ball, he just always had great body position. He always knew how much contact he can get away with, but it was just always in great position to turn and make a play on the ball. You could watch Lattimore play 2 or 3 deep balls last year and kind of see that he had that. So it's exciting to see the grade where it is, because he was exciting to watch as a prospect, because you said, man, this guy truly has it all, and only 1 year under his belt of real action out of Ohio State. So very impressive. And that's a game changer for that Saints defense, right? I mean, this makes them a legitimate contender in the NFC.
Yeah, and the thing is, rookie cornerbacks don't tend to play well early. It's a hard position to come in and excel at. Now, the game's changed a little bit, but if you go back to Revis's rookie season, he was good, and he had an overall PFF grade of 82.6. Like 82.6 is a pretty good grade for a rookie corner, but it's more than 10 points lower than where Lattimore is right now. So even if you anticipate some kind of come down from where Lattimore is, you're talking about a significantly better grade than Revis. Revis then went on to average a 90.5 over the next 7 years, I think. And even that isn't at the level that Lattimore is right yet. At the moment, the grade that Lattimore has right now, Revis only eclipsed that once in his entire career, and it was that 2009 season that is probably the greatest coverage season we have seen from a cornerback. So, I mean, Lattimore's play right now is at absolutely insane levels, and even if you factor in some kind of regression over the rest of the season, he's still in pretty crazy company.
I feel like Revis's numbers from that year need to be recited every now and again. Just
2009, they were crazy.
I'm looking at it right now, and look, the passer rating against, there's usually like a couple passes here and there that can skew that, but this was an example of the numbers absolutely backing up how good he was. Not only that was the year he literally tracked all the best receivers. Yep. That was it. He just doesn't matter who it is. You're going on Revis Island. Targeted 111 times, which is a ton. That was third most in the NFL.
That was the single biggest thing about all of that, because the Revis tracking receivers thing. If he tracks your number one receiver, one of two things has to happen. Either you need to throw the ball at Revis, in which case you're putting the ball in harm's way. You're throwing it at the best cornerback in the league. Or you need to roll into a game and say, we're not putting the ball near our best receiver. We're just sacrificing that guy to the god of Revis Island and leaving him and going elsewhere.
And most teams said we have to target.
Hate doing that.
Right.
So he got thrown out 111 times, which was, I think, the second most in the league that year.
Yep, and only 425 yards into his coverage, but the bigger one, 6 interceptions. And this was playing man coverage. You know, the big thing when you play man coverage, you're usually like you can get pass breakups in man coverage, but it's hard to get interceptions. Mm-hmm. He picked off 6, but had 23 pass breakups as well. Passer rating of 32.3 into his coverage. Over 111 targets against the best receivers.
He was targeted 111 times and allowed 41 catches. That's 36.9% of the passes thrown his way were caught, which
Insane.
Is crazy.
Sorry, we needed to give a little tribute to 2009 Darrelle Revis. It's always good to have those numbers in the perspective since we have it here to read and to look at. But that's what we're talking about.
I think is also worth doing while we're at crazy numbers, just to give a little tip of the cap to Casey Hayward's rookie year, because that may have been the second most ridiculous season we've seen in terms of coverage. Only playing the slot, he allowed a passer rating of 31.1 into his coverage, didn't give up a touchdown all season, again had 6 interceptions, 12 pass breakups, and he was targeted 74 times, allowed 33 catches, which is a completion percentage of 44.6. What makes that bit really interesting is that playing the slot, you give up a higher completion percentage than guys playing outside.
Yeah, there's all those easy, flat routes and 3-yard outs and 5-yard outs that you're recovering.
So you see guys typically that play the slot that have, a completion percentage over 60 because, as opposed to the 50s, the 40s that the outside guys, the good ones can have, they're up at 60, all that kind of thing. Casey Hayward's was still 44.6, which was the third best mark in the entire league that year. And is that's the kind of Richard Sherman area of best outside completion percentage allowed each season, and he was like that playing the slot as a rookie. So I mean, honestly, Casey Hayward is your high watermark right now for Marshon Lattimore to aim at over a season, but he could be playing outside and potentially matching up with number 1 receivers over the course of the year, whereas Hayward was playing the slot and not doing that.
Casey Hayward, a guy that so. That rookie season, 91.7 overall grade. We've been touting him for years. He's had one grade under 80, 76.1 in his career. This year again playing well, 87.4. Hayward always plays well. Yeah. He's just good.
And when
you
consider
overall,
he is the guy that Green Bay let walk from that secondary in favor of keeping Randall and Rollins and all the other guys to get lit up on a weekly basis.
They didn't think he could play outside. I don't completely understand it. Hayward truly an unsung hero, secret superstar type, which, again,
look at you segue.
Which is exactly what we wanted to talk about today, Sam. What a coincidence. We wanted to highlight some of the secret superstars here in the NFL through 7 weeks of action, because that's what we do. We had some requests from our millions and millions of listeners to touch on some of the unsung heroes, the secret superstars, as we like to call them. So throw some names out for me, Sam. Which guys are kind of outperforming expectations or contributing more than we expected coming into the year?
Yeah, there's a few really interesting guys who have been playing really well. I don't think many people would either see it coming or even recognize the play that they're at the moment. One of the more interesting guys to me is right tackle from Tampa Bay, DeMar Dotson, who I think a lot of people know as being a pretty good player, but I think he's really stepped it up this year and has been one of the best tackles in the entire league. Not just a guy that's been playing pretty well, and everyone knows that. He hasn't allowed a sack yet. He's allowed 5 total pressures so far across 6 games and 393 snaps. He's been playing fantastically. And the other guy, also a right tackle, Carolina Panthers, Darrell Williams. He's a guy I think that they wanted to get it playing at right tackle. They thought was a really good player, and we hadn't really seen it that much before now. We'd sort of seen him flash in limited, was a pretty good run blocker. This season he's really stepped forward as a pass blocker, and the run blocking has stayed good. He's allowed more pressure. He's allowed 3 sacks, hit, and 14 total hurries, which is a lot more than Dotson has allowed. But I think he's played a lot better than we were expecting him to.
Yeah, and going back to Dotson, I mean, his whole career just been this underrated guy. Right tackles don't get a whole lot of publicity. We've had to spend a lot of time explaining that Zach Strief is a pretty good tackle for the Saints for years, just because right tackles don't get a lot of publicity. But as those who follow my work know, my fans, Sam.
Your fans?
My fans.
Left tackle. You've increased that pool from your fan.
I think I'm up to 3 emails.
3 emails.
We might need to add some tallies there. Right tackle, just as important as left tackle. So DeMar Dotson adding a ton of value there. Tampa Bay's offensive line leading in pass blocking efficiency in the entire NFL.
Really?
so far.
Despite having Donovan Smith at left tackle.
Yes. Maybe he's improved a little bit. We're getting a little bit better over there. One of the secret superstars I wanted to highlight, a guy that we will discuss further in our Well Actually segment this week. Hope you guys are enjoying and checking those out as part of our agreement with Sports Illustrated. You'll find those on social media and their Pro Football Now show every Wednesday on sportsillustrated.com or si.com. Adrian Amos, the safety for the Bears. We talked about on the preview podcast, the Bears are a good defense. They were ranked number 3 in your rankings at profootballfocus.com last week.
Roundly mocked it was, by none other than Michael Renner.
And as you said, they choked the life. Is that the phraseology
the life out of
that
the
you
Carolina
used?
Panthers? 3 points all game, and they scored 14 themselves.
Adrian Amos, a big part of that. And he's a guy, the first year we graded 2014 at Penn State, he played a little bit in the slot. He moved around, quietly graded very well for us, went in the 5th round, and has been an excellent safety in the league. He's been a solid safety this year, kind of bringing his game to a new level. He's been a top 3 graded safety in the NFL this year.
Yeah, the Bears' defense outscored the Panthers' offense 4-1.
Unbelievable. All Eddie Jackson.
Yes, well, okay, Eddie Jackson outscored the Panthers' offense 4-1.
Yeah, that was an ugly game. Mitch Trubisky didn't have to pass, 7 times? Dropped back about 10 times. So Adrian Amos, just a name that I wanted to highlight. One other name I want to highlight also from the NFC North, Kenny Clark. I think you also wrote something up on him on the site this week. But he's a guy drafted in the 1st round in 2016, kind of a slow start as a rookie. His last 3 or 4 weeks, just outstanding, especially against the run. I liked him quite a bit coming out of UCLA. I couldn't figure out where his best fit was or if he was ever going to be this unbelievable pass rusher, but the thing I liked the most about him was how he played the run and how he just had this really good feel for defeating all different types of blocks. You know, if you were going to cut him, he wasn't going to get cut twice in a row. Like, he just knew where the block was coming from and how to beat it. If you were down blocking him, he could feel it and shed it. If whatever it was, he could do it. That's exactly what we're starting to see. His work against the run has been outstanding these last few weeks, and it kind of goes unnoticed, especially, Aaron Rodgers is hurt and all that fun stuff, and you're maybe not focusing on Kenny Clark a whole lot, but he's become a really big part of that defensive front. Yeah,
there's a lot of linebackers, I think, that are playing really well that you wouldn't expect to see high up on the rankings. Tahir Whitehead from Detroit, Lawrence Timmons at Miami, suddenly Lawrence Timmons looked...
That wasn't supposed to happen.
Absolutely done in Pittsburgh. But you take him out of that defense and you stop asking him to do crazy things like covering Odell Beckham Jr. 40 yards downfield on a deep crosser, and Lawrence Timmons actually looks like he can still play. This was a top-level linebacker at his best, and he's not quite at that level, but he's still playing pretty good stuff.
He did look slow, even without trying to cover Odell Beckham. He did look slow and out of place the last couple of years. So.
Yeah, but you can look slow and still be, in the right place, more or less, in the right scheme.
No, that's true.
If you look slow and they're asking you to do crazy things, it's just magnifying your problems. Like the Steelers also do that kind of weird man coverage within their zone coverage thing, which asks linebackers to kind of take a few steps in the direction of the first threat and then try and get back to the second threat. So you're taking him out of position to get to the guy that he's going to need to get to. Basically, they say the first couple of steps can be in your head, but you're then taking an extra few steps away from him by moving him out of position in the scheme. And it's just, it magnifies looking slow.
Right.
Not only are you slower than you used to be, but you now have longer distance to cover than any other linebacker. So it just exacerbated the whole problem. Guys like Devondre Campbell in Atlanta took a big step forward. Blake Martinez in Green Bay. I think you've got a lot of these guys who I think a lot of people wouldn't have expected to take big steps forward, all having fantastic seasons so far.
I think you're highlighting my point before. You've got all these young players.
Just because the offensive line suck.
Yeah, that could be it. But I like to think that it's all these nice young players that came into the league the last couple of years. Balance of power back towards the defense. I know statistically it still looks good offensively, but the balance of power is turning a little bit. One other name I want to highlight, David Andrews, the center for the New England Patriots. I know Brady's been under a ton of pressure, and Andrews has certainly, he's not the most I don't know if powerful is the right word. He'll get bull rushed quite a bit, just like his buddy Joe Thuney next to him at guard. They'll get pushed back quite a bit in the pocket, so he's given up a pretty high number of pressures, but run blocking has been so much better this year than it was in the past. One of our top-graded run-blocking centers. So I'm focused on the run game. David Andrews currently number 2 in our run-blocking grades among centers, even though his pass blocking is a little bit just below average at 68.9. But another unsung guy because, yeah, he's improved quite a bit this season.
The other guy I want to throw out there, we talked a bit about Patrick Robinson with the Eagles before and how well he's playing and how unexpectedly well he is playing. The other guy I think that fits that bill from a cornerback point of view is Jason McCourty. Over to the Browns, got him from the Titans where, again, he looked kind of done and terrible. And now Jason McCourty has been playing fantastic, and the wheels have yet to fall off this. I keep waiting for the game that Jason McCourty gives up like 250 yards to somebody and a couple of touchdowns, and it hasn't come yet. And he right now has the second best cornerback grade in the league at 92.0, behind only Marshon Lattimore. He's given up a passer rating of just 56.3, only 1 touchdown. Has given up only 193 yards all season. The Browns have 2 of the top 8 graded corners between McCourty and Buddy Calhoun. I'm not sure where that's come from.
You have a stat for Buddy Calhoun?
We'll get to that. That's on our stats of the week segment.
I see it in the document. I'm not completely surprised with the McCourty thing. He's had bouts of good play throughout his career. He's graded over 80 3 different times. I'm more waiting for the Patrick Robinson wheels to fall off because he's
definitely waiting for that.
He's been more perennially average.
But McCourty's grades went from like 84, 84, 62, 36. They bounced back last year to 72, but still, that 3-year sample, the past 3 seasons, you're looking at a very, very average cornerback at best.
Oh, I know, I get it.
And maybe, suddenly he's having a career year.
Maybe they're both the same guy, some level of average. Before we move on, pay a couple bills, tell you about our friends over at Draft. That's draft.com or Draft in your app store. We've been playing fantasy football with these guys since August, having a ton of fun with it. It's NFL, NBA, NHL, golf, or MLB. You guys can get in there and actually get a free game because you can win real money with this whole deal. You get a free game when you use the promo code PFF. You'll get a free $3 game, and here's how it works when you're playing these sports. You could be in full season leagues where you just draft the team and then forget it. It is a best ball format, so just because I have Carson Palmer on my team, I don't have to fret. I still have Tom Brady. They'll get my best quarterback every single week. Don't have to worry about waiver wire or changes or trades or anything like that. They'll take your best players. So they've got full season leagues. They've got head-to-head leagues, 3-person drafts, and the game prices are all over the place. You have $1 entry. You have $25 entry. You could do a $100 entry, whatever you are looking for. So you guys can go get a free $3 game when you use the promo code PFF. It's over at draft.com or Draft in your app store. Our favorite new way to play fantasy football over here at PFF.
Did Mike ever go in with his $100 game? Is he balling it out with the $100 game?
I feel like Mike's all talk.
I think so.
I feel like he would be more about diversifying amongst 10 different games rather than one.
You don't think he's got the all or nothing mentality?
I don't think he does. I don't know. I'm not really sure, though. How's my... I got this one league going. Oh, I fell. I dropped a little bit. Dropped a little bit to 5th in this one league.
That's brilliant. There's nothing that makes better radio than telling people about your fantasy team. Radio/podcast.
It's really not that good, but I'm trying to tell people where over at draft.com where it is.
Yeah, there you go. That rescues it.
Yeah, but you definitely don't want to tell people about your fantasy team here. Anything else with this weekend that stood out to you? By the way, guys, if you guys want to be a part of the show, and you guys have done a great job with this whole thing, email us, podcasts@profootballfocus.com. We will answer your emails every single Wednesday. It's gone to the point where we really have to sift through these things because we're getting so many good ones.
We almost had a magic carpet play in college football this week. Did you see that? A UCLA running back scored a touchdown essentially by walking on the head of the defender, trying to tackle him and gliding his way into the end zone.
That was your game. Do you throw an extra 0.5 on that?
For the magic carpet?
For creativity.
But somebody pointed out to, I tweeted the play in question, and somebody pointed out that was almost the magic carpet play from job-related tweet. Who
you guys have been awesome. Our listeners have been awesome. The interaction over the last few weeks, every time something happens on the field and they're like, hey, What do you guys think about
We
that?
tried
I
to
heard you
get
guys talk about it.
tried to get an extra Des Bryant PD this week. We put it up for review for the All 22 look. It didn't quite come off.
He's still sitting at 6. So quick update. Maybe it's not good radio here either, Sam, but maybe a quick update on the closet, the podcast closet. So Des Bryant PDs will stay at 6.
Yep.
Menelik Watson.
He's been injured, so he hasn't had a chance to extend his 7.
Still sitting at 7 sacks. Emails for Steve.
Well,
update
emails
that.
need updating.
We'll update it Wednesday.
Allegedly, you have extra emails.
We'll update it Wednesday. Coming into the week, you're at 8-2.
Yes.
We've had more emails than that. It's just specifically
after
to
you
one
begged
of us.
for emails for the last 2 weeks, you've had more emails.
I have not begged.
You have begged
I have
at
not
least
begged.
twice.
I have just been myself, my usual dashing personality.
You have definitely begged. I'm just saying.
I've gotten some Twitter shout-outs from overseas as well.
Yes.
So I haven't turned off all of our foreign
I'm just
listeners.
saying it feels like we've gone above and beyond in the attempt to swing that back in your direction. I have just been myself and I've got many emails.
So we also have a new addition on the wall, which I'll throw up on the Instagram account at Pro Football Focus.
What's our other posted up there? The one at Steve Height, the
oh
Steve
my gosh,
High level.
I forgot. What is this? This day in history, Matthew Stafford batted. Oh, it's just a historic.
Oh, I see. Have we
It's
got
just
another one of those, or are we just going to have that day?
I think it's just a remembrance that on October 15th, 2017, Matthew Stafford had an incredible 7 batted passes at the line of scrimmage.
That is impressive.
I just want to explain what we put on the door over here, the Paul Burmeister picture, because Paul was the host of our NFL draft show on NBC Sports a couple of years ago, and he was so good. I mean, he has become Sam's hero.
Absolutely.
Sam's. This is a new venture into media for
here's
you,
what
right?
people. Let's relay the Burmeister advice to the people who might not know this. Right, when you see people doing TV and doing radio and all this kind of stuff, they are shouting at each other, like literally
from point blank range.
2 feet away. They are yelling at each other on camera. But for some reason, when you put that on camera, it doesn't look like shouting. It actually, that's just the energy. With what's that?
Bring the energy.
What's
air,
this?
Air quotes.
Air quotes. There
air
you go.
quotes.
Why can I never remember that? Air quotes, energy in air quotes,
Good job
is just
announcing air
shouting.
quotes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is just people shouting at each other. So when we were doing this thing, we sit up, we get on the set in NBC, and we just start like talking, like we're doing the podcast.
Right.
And Paul has to kind of, take us aside and say, so guys, just shout. Like it's not going to sound like that. You need to really just yell, because they were all talking. Like all the producing guys are like, maybe up the energy a little bit.
The producers say bring the
Bring
energy.
the energy.
But Paul was
Cody,
very specific.
what they really mean is just shout at the guy right next to you.
Well, 'cause
it's
he and
going to
Chris-
seem silly, but just shout at him.
He and our big boss Chris Collinsworth, of course.
Yeah.
They did a segment together, and we were watching. We were like, they are screaming
They're
at
just
each other,
yelling at each other from 2 feet away.
and it comes across as completely normal.
Yeah,
completely
on the
normal.
TV. When you're looking at them do it, you're like, what the hell are they doing? They're just shouting at each other from a couple of feet away. But on TV, it looks fantastic. So every time me and Steve have to do, voiceover work or anything like on camera, all this kind of stuff, it's like, just remember what Burmeister told you. Shout at the guy next to you. You'll feel like an idiot, but that's the way it is. That's the way it works.
Remember the Burmeister. So, yeah, Sam especially looks up to Paul pretty much as a hero. We had a great experience working with him. He was so professional. The guy
He was the only guy in that entire day.
He can talk while they're counting in his head.
Yes.
He can do it all.
He was the only guy in that entire day that didn't screw up once, and he had the hardest job of all of us because he was trying to tie together all of our loose end stuff. So I was immeasurably impressed by his performance that day.
So the point is, we're big fans of Paul Burmeister, and there's a picture posted on the wall now of Paul in Sam's plain view, because Sam especially just needs a reminder every now and again to bring the energy, and there's really no excuse now because Paul is always in sight.
And, of course, we also have the Hail Mary play taped to the back of the door. It's
Oh,
also
yes, we
worth
do.
noting exactly the quality of the artwork that's being put up. If you have in your mind a picture of framed pieces or, nicely mounted with whatever, no, throw that right out. What you're looking at right now is badly articulated printouts from the computer that use up like 2/3 of the page that are being duct taped to the door or the wall, or the sticky notes, in fairness to them, are just stuck to the wall.
In the worst third-grade handwriting from Taylor. So,
it's not the highest production value in terms of painting and decorating that's being done.
The closet's coming together.
But it is being decorated.
So yeah, we'll tweet out some pictures. We'll tweet them out and we'll put them on the Instagram account this week. Follow us at Pro Football Focus on the Instagram.
What are we up to? We had our stats of the week yet?
Yeah, if there's anything else you want to talk about from this week, specific with games, shout it out. If not, we'll get right into our
podcasts at profootballfocus.com. Podcast plural. Podcasts.
And you guys could give us negative feedback for talking about Paul Burmeister for 10 minutes.
The number of people that managed to screw that email
Yeah, it's
up.
multiple podcasts. Okay, 6 stats of the week. Let's go, Sam. Give me your big number. This is all from PFF Elite, which you can now get on a monthly basis. That's all new.
Coney Ely has 8 batted passes, which is twice the number of any other lineman in the NFL so far this year.
That's pretty impressive.
Isn't it?
I want to follow up on that.
Uh-oh.
PFF Edge, if you guys have Edge and you guys check out our college draft signature stats, Uchenna Nwosu, the edge rusher from USC.
You can't pronounce Gagan, but you can pronounce that.
You don't know if that's right or not, but it did sound. I was pretty confident in it. He has 7, and he's slowed down a little bit. He has 7 though. He's leading the nation. Just a little, just adding on.
Both impressive. Yeah, there you go. Bonus number.
All right, yards per route run. So we're all about grades here when we evaluate players, and I do think that the grades are the best true indicator of performance, and then the stats are best used to kind of paint the picture as to where those grades have come from. If there is a stat, though, I think where if I didn't have grades, I would look to this stat. Yards per route run for receivers, I think, is just a fantastic measure. Almost always, the top 2 receivers right now, Antonio Brown, Julio Jones, A.J. Green. It's always your top
those
receivers.
3, always.
Right? And it just really sums up how productive a receiver is. It's essentially receiving yards divided by, instead of attempts or targets or anything like that, or receptions, receiving yards divided by the number of routes that they ran, yards per route. And Adam Thielen, number 5, Minnesota Vikings, and Stephon Diggs. I'm sorry, I changed the filter. Hold on a second.
Whoa.
Stephon Diggs is 4. Adam Thielen is 6. So now we're talking about the Minnesota Vikings numbers 4 and 6. Diggs is at 2.56 yards per route. Thielen 2.17 yards per route. So pretty impressive. That is the best combo, the best pairing in the NFL.
Well, especially when you consider that their quarterback has been Case Keenum for most of the year. And half of busted Sam Bradford.
A one-legged Sam Bradford.
Yeah, so that's, Case Keenum played pretty well for a couple of games in there, and then went back to being Case Keenum. Plus, you get the half of busted up Bradford. They've had some problems at quarterback and still had that kind of production. That's pretty impressive.
It is impressive, so really nice.
What have I got? Deshaun Watson has the league's lowest adjusted completion percentage. So when you factor in drops and that kind of thing to a completion percentage, he's 23rd in regular completion percentage, but his receivers have dropped 2 passes all season, which is just 1.1%, and he goes all the way to the bottom. Dead last in the NFL in adjusted completion percentage.
So with Watson, I'm going to write him up this week for the site, a little bit more detailed breakdown on his grade. And people have asked us, why is he grading so low? I'll write it up and try to give an explanation. But the short version is only 2 drops, like as you're mentioning. So why are Watson's stats not matching up with the grades? That's one of them.
Yeah.
Right. If you just tack on 10 more drops, which isn't that unreasonable, major drop off, right?
Yeah.
So dropped passes, high percentage of negatively graded throws, high percentage of turnover-worthy throws that he's gotten away with. But ultimately what it's come down to is that first game was such a disaster against Jacksonville, which crushed his grade. Since he's been a starter, he's been a mid-tier guy.
Yeah.
And honestly, from an eye test standpoint, from an analytics standpoint, from everything that we're doing, I think that's pretty fair, saying that he's been a mid-tier guy. Now, statistically, I know he's crushing it on your fantasy team, and he's creating play, and he's got 15 touchdowns to lead the league and all of that stuff. I think he's been a mid-tier type of quarterback since he started. He had those garbage time touchdowns against Kansas City, still had that interception and turnover-worthy play luck. But he's also had a lot of positives, too. He's had a high percentage big-time throws, and he's made a lot of plays. So that's where we are with Watson. I'll get into some more detail on the site this week.
Yeah, he's a big highlight reel player at the moment. The stuff that he does well is fantastic. It's phenomenal. But there's a lot of kind of slight negatives in there that aren't being taken into consideration. So when you factor in, if you add in half a dozen extra drops that most other quarterbacks are dealing with, it's not that those would add negative grades to his to his overall body of work, because if they were good throws, he's still getting a positive for them. It's the fact that that means that overall his accuracy or his general efficiency is less than what it looks like now because, those other quarterbacks have a higher adjusted completion percentage. Those guys are making more of those plays in compared to Watson. They're just not. It just doesn't look like it because his receivers have caught everything that's been thrown their way. That was my second stat. You got yours now.
Yeah, Brandon Graham, favorite of the show. We usually like to talk about Brandon Graham's pass rushing and how maybe he's not this year he's got 5 sacks, but maybe he's not getting to the quarterback every year, but he's really effective. But heading into Monday Night Football, and this could have changed since by the time you guys listen to this.
Good stat.
I know. Leading edge defenders with a run stop percentage of 15.4%. That's 10 run stops. That's a tackle for essentially an offensive loss on a play, not a loss of yardage, but a short gain. 10 stops on 65 run snaps.
Nice.
Quick break to tell you that this episode is brought to you by PredictionMachine.com. Prediction Machine, a new generation in sports analytics where they simulate the game 50,000 times before they're actually played. Make better picks with proven data-driven analysis. Subscribe at PredictionMachine.com today and earn a $5 credit that can be used towards the purchase of any package.
This is the one that we're going to get to. We kind of mentioned with the McCourty and Buddy Calhoun thing. Brian Buddy Calhoun is giving up the least receptions in football. He is giving up a catch every 44.5 coverage snaps, which is by far and away the best mark in the league. He is the only cornerback that has a higher number of coverage snaps or snaps in coverage between giving up catches than Patrick Peterson, who is at 36.9. So Buddy Calhoun is, 7-ish coverage snaps higher than Patrick Peterson per reception giving up. He's also the least targeted cornerback in the game. And it's not like he's barely been on the field. This isn't a guy that's just a quirk of numbers and he's been out there for 25 snaps and hasn't given up a catch yet. He's played 178 coverage snaps. So for whatever reason, and he's grading well. Like you said, he's, in the top 8 along with McCourty for the Browns. So for whatever reason, Calhoun is just having this crazy number or crazy season where he is not giving up anything in coverage.
Can I just add some perspective to that? So one of the stats that we have there, cover snaps per target.
Yeah.
Right? So how many times are you on the field in coverage per target? He's first with 19.9 cover snaps per target. Next closest, Prince Amukamara, every 12.8. So the difference between Body Calhoun,
I think.
Body Calhoun and Amukamara is about 7 snaps per target. The difference between Amukamara, the number 2 cornerback in this list, and say the number 97 corner on this list, LaShawn Sims, is also 7 coverage snaps. So that's how little Body Calhoun is actually seeing targets.
Yeah, he is also leading the league in yards per coverage snap. So he is basically winning cornerback metrics. Every cornerback metric you can come up with effectively, Buddy Calhoun is at the top of them. He has allowed 0.14 yards per coverage snap. We talked about how insane it was for Terrence Newman to be giving up 0.40. So he's, like 3 times better than Terrence Newman was a season ago, which was a crazy number.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
And also
I don't
twice,
completely understand it.
Like half the number anyone else has given up. Aqib Talib is second in that list at 0.32, along with Patrick Peterson, Richard Sherman. Like, this is one of those numbers that, again, tends to be a pretty good indicator of play. 2, 3, and 4 on this list are Aqib Talib, Patrick Peterson, and Richard Sherman. 1 is Buddy Calhoun at less than half.
And they're just not targeting him. And as we mentioned in our actually this week, too, a lot of times your team's pass rush grade will help on your coverage stats and everything, and the Browns have had one of the worst pass rushes in the NFL so far.
He's given up 25 yards this season.
A crazy statistical anomaly, all a part of PFF Elite. That's why I like to surf around. I don't have a great third stat. I'm just going to discuss a little bit of cornerback pass rushing here. Brian Poole for Atlanta, highest pass rush productivity while rushing. That's essentially blitzing. When you're a cornerback, only 11 pass rushes, but has picked up 6 total pressures. Also want to highlight Mike Hilton of the Pittsburgh Steelers. He has 6 pressures on 30 pass rush snaps. That's a pretty high PRP of 15.8. Not the best in the league, but I really want to highlight Hilton to kind of piggyback on that secret superstar deal. He was a guy graded really well for us at Ole Miss, undersized, 5'9", 182. His first full year of action after being a free agent in 2016. This is his first regular season action this year. He's been outstanding for the Steelers. Flying around, he reads screens well, he plays the run well. We mentioned his blitzing off the edge, and he's covering really well. That Steelers defense is playing just top to bottom, from the defensive front to the secondary. I think they're all kind of outperforming expectations. I really like the way they've started to rebuild that defense. Mike Hilton quietly a big part of that. So I kind of stole some SIG stats and went back to Secret Superstar.
I think that's
to
okay.
Connect it, to
I
connect
think that's
it all
allowed.
together.
I think you can do that.
What else you got for us, Sam?
That's me done. Those were my three. Buddy Calhoun was my last. I'm out. I'm tapped out of stats.
All right, guys. I think we're tapped out of Week 7 review. Focused on some bigger picture stuff today. Don't forget 4 big episodes every single week. Tomorrow will be the quarterback analysis breakdown. Zach Robinson and myself. Don't forget the mailbag edition. Like I said, podcasts at profootballfocus.com or on Twitter. Hit up Sam at PFF_Sam or myself at PFF_Steve. If you're into Sam or Steve a little bit more, one than the other, don't forget hashtag Team Sam and hashtag Team Steve have started to take off a little bit. And by take off, there's at least 3 people that have been using it.
Yes,
one
of whom was creating fake tattoos on their back.
I am pretty sure that's not fake.
Which went to a slightly creepy place.
Lee, I appreciate you getting a tattoo of me on your back because you are hashtag Team Steve. But you guys can send your allegiances to us on Twitter at PFF_Sam, at PFF_Steve. And then, of course, we'll be back for the Week 8 NFL preview edition. Sam, can you take us home with some getting on the amusement park voice?
No, I'm not doing that voice anymore. I'm done with it. It's freaking me out, and I don't like it. So I'm not doing that. What I am going to say is that we are going to drop the promo code for our listeners. PFF10, PFF10 will get you $10 off any PFF product that you want to buy on our site. So whether you want Edge, you get essentially 25% off PFF Edge. Whether you want to get $10 off PFF Elite, or it will work for the PFF Elite monthly option as well. So
it does?
Yes,
I didn't know it worked for monthly too.
Yes, it does. So that effectively is the biggest saving percentage-wise, because that's the smallest value from a dollar point of view. You get $10 off that. You get a huge saving off your first month of PFF Elite to see what it's all about.
Awesome. I actually didn't even know that it was part of the monthly. PFF Elite, we've got game-by-game grades. We have the monthly. PFF Edge, the other highlight, draft content, all coming through there. Your draft signature stats in like a nice 70-page PDF, nice and simple. So be sure to check all that out. And if you guys leave us a 5-star review, you have a chance to get PFF Elite for free. So just go do that. 5-star review, leave your Twitter handle or an email address, and we'll let you know if you won. That's about it. Sam doesn't want to take us home with his amusement park voice, so we're out. We'll see you guys on our next episode.